Last year, Nintendo announced that in early 2024, they would be shutting down these servers for 3DS games. And I don't know if you've looked at a calendar recently, but it's early 2024. So with only a few months left until the servers actually do shut down, I wanted to make kind of a comprehensive video going over, in my opinion, what are the most important 3DS games that you should consider playing before the servers do shut down. Now, this isn't going to be every single 3DS game that has online play. This is a list I curated myself of what I would deem as the most important 3DS games that have online play. If I miss anything, please let me know in the comments below. Maybe I'll make a follow-up video if I somehow miss your favorite 3DS game. Although I think I've created a pretty good list here. We'll be ranking each game on whether or not you should definitely play it, if you should consider playing it, and the final tier is kind of like an why not play it? You know, it's a fun novelty. Although it might not be the most exciting thing, you might as well try it out one final time before you can't anymore. So with that being said, let's take a look at a ton of 3DS games that you should play before the server shut down. We'll be going through this in alphabetical order, so starting off we have Animal Crossing New Leaf for the Nintendo 3DS. Now I know there's a very vocal community of Animal Crossing fans that actually prefer New Leaf to New Horizons, so if you are one of those people, this is your final 3 months to really experience this game with friends before the server shut down. That is the key word here, with friends, because I'm pretty sure, correct me if I'm wrong, pretty much every aspect of Animal Crossing New Leaf can be experienced in single player, right? There's nothing that's truly locked. I think with Welcome Amiibo, they added some of the kind of party games from Amiibo Festival, and there might be some mini games over on Captain's Island, but for the most part, the main online component of Animal Crossing New Leaf is just going to your friend's town. You'll still be able to do that locally, and that does apply to pretty much everything on this list. But for me, I would rank Animal Crossing New Leaf as a you should consider it. Like, it's an important 3DS game, but there is a new version that a lot of people do think is better on the Switch, and even then, the online multiplayer component of this game isn't that crucial to the experience, at least in my opinion. Next up, we have our first fighting game on the list, Dead or Alive Dimensions from Tecmo and Team Ninja. Now, this is actually a game I had back when I was a kid, and I enjoyed it quite a bit back then, messing around online when the servers were still active. However, and this goes for most games on this list, the servers are very, very dead. It is unlikely you will find other players. However, if you have a friend that has the game, you can just queue up for a worldwide match, do some ranked battles, get your rank going in Dead or Alive Dimensions, which honestly, just playing it with friends recently has been very fun to me. But in terms of uniqueness, right, is there a great reason to really go back and play Dead or Alive Dimensions if you haven't already played it? Not really. As far as I can tell, there was no new content in this game that wasn't already in previous Dead or Alive games. It's kind of like a supercut of the previous games in the franchise up to that point. I would give this one a rating of why not? It's a fun novelty, but not much more than that. Next up, we have one of the only digital-only games on this list from Nintendo itself, Dr. Mario Miracle Cure. Now, this one's interesting because it is currently the most recent Dr. Mario game released that actually still exists, Dr. Mario World on iOS and Android, where it was taken down a few years ago. So Dr. Mario Miracle Cure is currently the latest Dr. Mario game that we have, and it does have full online. It also includes the Dr. Luigi mode from Dr. Luigi on the Wii U. So this is our current up-to-date version of Dr. Mario, and the online play will be going away forever. So you can play online, there's ranked modes. I would rank this game as a you should consider it, because while I think it's very likely we will eventually get another Dr. Mario game, it is currently the most up-to-date version of a timeless classic puzzle game, and very soon you won't be able to play it online anymore. Next up is Fantasy Life from Level 5. Now, although I haven't played this game, if I were making this video about a year ago, I would definitely say this is a must-play 3DS game, just because I've been recommended it so much over the years, and from the little bit I have played of it, I really enjoyed it. However, they recently announced that Fantasy Life I would be coming to the Switch in 2024, so Fantasy Life on the 3DS became a lot less important with that announcement, just because we're essentially getting a new version of this game that will hopefully be playable for many, many years to come. But if you like life sims with adventure and action elements, this game lets you, play with friends online. I think it's up to 3 players, and you can just go on adventures, do stuff together, get your loot drops, and all that fun stuff. So Fantasy Life is one of the most recommended games for me of all time on 3DS, and if you want to play it online, you only have a couple months. But once again, consider that it is coming to Switch, so maybe if you're kind of crunching for time on what 3DS games you want to play in these final few months before the server shut down, maybe don't focus on a game that's getting a sequel on the Switch. Final Fantasy Explorers from Square Enix is next up, and this is actually one that I'm personally going to try and play before the server shut down. This is a game that has a pretty heavy co-op focus because it is essentially, from what I've gathered, Monster Hunter Final Fantasy. And while the game didn't sell that well, and it certainly didn't review that well, it's something that I feel like Square Enix will never ever port. So although it might not be the best game, I'm not saying that from experience, I haven't played it, I definitely think you should at least consider trying it out, because it's a game I really don't think would ever come to other platforms, and we might never see Square Enix try another Monster Hunter style game. According to How Long to Beat, it's like 20 hours, so I'm not sure if I'll be able to squeeze that in before the server shutdown, but I'm at least going to try. Speaking of weird Square Enix games, we have Heroes of Ruin. Now, this was their take on a kind of Diablo-esque dungeon crawler, but for the 3DS. It was exclusive to the platform, and it's actually one of the first games I got on the 3DS way back in the day. It has full online voice chat, which is really interesting, and honestly, for a new IP on the 3DS in 2012, I think it's a pretty fun game. This is a full 4-player co-op game on the 3DS Online, so if you're looking for something kind of random that maybe you haven't heard of for your 3DS to play before the server shut down, Heroes of Ruin should definitely scratch that Diablo dungeon crawling itch. And alongside Final Fantasy Explorers, this is also a game I'm hoping to finish up before the server shut down, so I definitely think you should at least consider playing Heroes of Ruin. Might not be everybody's cup of tea, but it's certainly an interesting game that the 3DS had to offer that not many people talk about. Alright folks, we're finally at our first big one, Kyro Uprising. This is an absolute definite must-play. If you are a fan of Nintendo, if you are a fan of the 3DS, you should buy this game and try playing it online before the server shut down. Absolutely, no questions asked. So Kyro Uprising is mostly known for its really good story mode, and you should also play that, absolutely, but it also has a pretty compelling and interesting online PvP mode. It's weird to see Nintendo kind of just do a basic PvP, like team-based, almost just deathmatch mode, but they also have free-for-all in there, and it's just something that, although, you know, the 3DS controls for this game aren't the best, this mode is so much fun. You know, even going back just to record some footage for this video, I was really thinking like, dang, this is cool. This is such a cool mode that Sakurai and his team made for Kyro Uprising, and it's such a shame that this is leaving. So like I said, if you're a fan of Nintendo, if you're a fan of Kyro or like the IP, or even just have the idea of potentially liking the IP one day, I definitely think you should do yourself the favor of playing this game before the server shut down. There is potential this gets ported to Switch eventually, which may outdate this completely. Maybe at that point, you know, it's like, why bother with the 3DS version of Kyro Uprising, right? But as of right now, when I'm recording this, there is no updated version of Kyro Uprising, which to me means that this is an absolute must-play, and you should at least try out the multiplayer before the servers go down for good. Next up is Kirby Battle Royale. This is actually interesting because it released after the Switch, so I feel like most 3DS owners probably didn't ever even try this game. What's interesting is Kirby Battle Royale was actually the first Kirby game to have a full online multiplayer suite, which is just kind of weird for a 2018 3DS game. But if you're unfamiliar with the game, it's kind of like this, well, Battle Royale where you play through a bunch of different kind of mini games, almost like Mario Party, but maybe a little bit more advanced than that. You know, they'll have a mini game where you have to like pick up apples and bring them back to your home base, or one where it's just a straight up basic battle arena and you have copy abilities. It's a pretty fun game. Didn't get the best reviews as far as I'm aware, but I enjoyed playing through the single player. I never tried the multiplayer. I assume it's dead, but once again, if you have some friends and want to boot it up, I think this is one you should consider. Luigi's Mansion Dark Moon. I think this is a pretty obvious why not? You know, for the novelty, sure. To play the original version of Luigi's Mansion Dark Moon and try out the Scare-Scraper, sure. But if you don't know, this game is coming to the Switch in just a few months, and that full multiplayer experience from the 3DS version is also being brought over. So beyond the novelty, there's really not much reason to go back to Dark Moon on the 3DS. Next up, we have a sprint of Mario games to go through, so starting off, Mario Golf World Tour. Why not? Now, I'll be honest, I haven't played this game anywhere near as much as the most recent Mario Golf game, Super Rush, on the Switch, and while I know people have a lot of issues with that game, World Tour was actually a game I remember people being really positive on back when it came out in 2014. So while it might be fun to go back and try out the single-player content this game has to offer, I feel like for most people, the online wouldn't be their main focus if they were to go back to this game, because if you really want to play a Mario Golf game online, you're probably just going to play Super Rush realistically. Mario Tennis Open. Once again, why not? I actually played through the game for the first time a few months ago, and I really was surprised by how much I enjoyed it. You know, it's still not quite to that creativity of like Power Tennis on the GameCube, but there's still some interesting stuff in the challenge modes in Tennis Open. So once again, the single player content is definitely there, and that's interesting, but the multiplayer, if you want to play a multiplayer Mario Tennis game, you're probably just going to play Mario Tennis Aces. And finally, for our Mario Sports roundup here, we have Mario Sports Superstars. Once again, a game that released after the Switch came out in 2017. This one, I actually would go as far as to say you should consider it. This is a compilation of 5 different sports. 2 of them are just tennis and golf, so those ones aren't that important. However, This is the most recent Mario Baseball version we have, and it also includes a portable version of Mario Strikers, essentially, with a soccer mode, which we've never seen before in its own full game, as well as a unique mode in the horse racing. So if you can find a friend, I would say this is the most interesting Mario sports game to go back to on the 3DS. And then finally, ending off our Mario games, Mario Kart 7. This is an absolute definite play. If you have not played Mario Kart 7, you should definitely consider doing it, but this is the best selling game of the system. I imagine most of you probably have, but if you haven't, I highly recommend you go check it out. This is definitely the most active game on 3DS as well, so even if you don't have friends who also want to go back and check out a bunch of these 3DS games, you can still find races pretty much any time of day, which is just a huge motivator to actually go back and do it. You know, there's nothing that you really unlock from playing the online, but in my opinion, Mario Kart 7 is one of the best 3DS games and one of the best Mario Kart games. I've actually always really liked this game quite a bit. It's my most played 3DS game as well, I think next to Pokemon X. So if you want to experience a really good handheld Mario Kart game that isn't Mario Kart 8, Mario Kart 7 is sitting right there, and the online will only be up for a few more weeks, although I imagine this is a game that, using custom servers, there will probably always be some players, realistically. But still, I definitely think you should play Mario Kart 7 while these servers are still active. Getting a little crazy here, 2 back-to-back definite plays. Metroid Prime, Federation Force. Now, I know what you're thinking. This game is a meme. Why would I want to play it? People hate this game. Hear me out. I actually played through this with some friends a few months back, and while I don't think this is a perfect game, and it certainly wasn't what the Metroid franchise needed at the time, this is a game that is designed so heavily around its multiplayer that playing it single player, frankly, just isn't worth it. So if you have any interest in Metroid history, and just experiencing every game in the franchise, play Federation Force while the servers are still up. In fact, I would argue, next to another game that we haven't gotten to, this is the most important 3DS game that you can play today. The controls take some getting used to, but once you are used to them, this game actually is pretty fun. If not a little bit repetitive, there are some cool different modes. Of course, Blast Ball, the Rocket League mode that we are all familiar with. But considering this game had such a major focus on its online co-op play, I definitely think you should try it out while you still can. Something else you should definitely consider is the Monster Hunter series. Now, I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I'm very familiar with this franchise. I've played a lot of World and a little bit of Rise, but that's about it. To me, I look at this franchise and I say, well, there's versions of these games on Switch, on PlayStation, and on Xbox, and as well as PC. Why would you really want to go back and play 3 Ultimate, or 4 Ultimate, or even Generations? But I know there is a dedicated community of Monster Hunter players. Maybe it's exclusive monsters, maybe it's exclusive areas. I'm not sure what it is, but there are people that still play Monster Hunter on the 3DS. I think 4 Ultimate is the most popular one. Correct me in the comments down below if you're a big Monster Hunter fan. But if you want to experience what the series was like back when it was extremely niche on the 3DS, back before World kind of catapulted it into mainstream popularity, you should definitely consider doing so. Now, these next couple I'm just going to group together as one whole thing, like with Monster Hunter, the Pokemon series. Now, the importance of this one, it will depend on if you're already a Pokemon fan. If you're already a Pokemon fan, first of all, you've probably already played these games, but if you haven't, you definitely should. I think Sun and Moon, the Gen 7 games, have some hacking issues, so I don't even know if the GTS is still usable, but Wonder Trade is a great feature. Online battling, trading, all that stuff is going away for good. So if you're a Pokemon fan, I definitely recommend checking these games out while the servers are still active. Although these games are definitely more single player oriented than pretty much anything else on this list, it is still worth noting that, you know, you can trade online right now, and you won't be able to do that soon. So if you have any trade evolutions, unless you have another 3DS and you can do it locally on another copy of the game, you won't be able to do those. So if you need any trade evolutions done or anything like that, you know, if you want to battle before these servers go down, you only have a few months left to do so. Now, a question I know a lot of people are asking is, what about Pokemon Bank? Pokemon Bank is an application that lets you transfer Pokemon from Generation 6 and Generation 7 all the way up to the current game Scarlet and Violet. The current status of this is that they said the application will remain operational for the foreseeable future. Now, I think eventually that clock will run out and they will shut down Pokemon Bank eventually, maybe not soon, but that is definitely something that you should consider, and I think playing these games in general online is worth considering. Next up, we have a pair of Resident Evil games, Resident Evil The Mercenaries 3D, as well as Resident Evil Revelations. Now, I actually played Revelations on the 3DS all the way back when it came out in 2012, and I really enjoyed it. However, since then, the game has been ported to pretty much every platform known to man. Now, if you only have a 3DS and you want to play a fun co-op zombie game with your friends, Revelations is a great pick. However, The Mercenaries is a game that hasn't been ported. I don't know if that content has been added to anything else. Correct me in the comments if I'm wrong, but that is just another similar co-op based Resident Evil game on the 3DS. And in my opinion, these are some of the best looking 3DS games that are on the market. So if you're looking for a pretty nice looking visual 3DS game, as well as just a fun co-op zombie game, Resident Evil The Mercenaries 3D and Resident Evil Revelations are definitely something that you should consider. Super Smash Bros. For the Nintendo 3DS. Now this might surprise you, but I'm actually only going to give this one a you should consider rating, because Smash Bros. Ultimate exists, and I guess the same thing would apply to Mario Kart 7, but I feel like for most people, Super Smash Bros. On the 3DS is just an inferior version to Smash Ultimate, and while I don't necessarily fully agree with that, I can see where they're coming from. Now, Smash on Wii U, yeah, I don't think there's much reason to go back to that, but Smash Bros. On 3DS does have quite a few stages that never even made it to Smash Ultimate, so if that's something you're interested in, and you know, checking this game out online, you only have a few months to do so, so definitely consider it. It is also one of the only 3DS games that are still active, so maybe try it out. Super Street Fighter 4 3D. Now, this is actually a really interesting one to me, because while getting footage for this video, I somehow ran into other players. Like, there were 2 other players playing this game. I recorded my footage on Christmas Day last year, and they were people playing Super Street Fighter 4 for the 3DS. Now, as far as if you should play this or not, it's more of a novelty. I would say, why not, you know, because Street Fighter 4 is on other platforms, and even then, Street Fighter 5 and Street Fighter 6 also exist. But I guess it is also kind of interesting because this is the most recent Street Fighter game that has come to a Nintendo platform. Street Fighter 4 is actually not even on the Switch. But if you're looking for a game that you might be able to find players in randomly without, you know, having your friends queue up at the same time, as far as I can tell, Street Fighter 4 on the 3DS, which is crazy for a launch title, actually still has some players, which is very strange. Here we have another fighting game, Tekken 3D Prime Edition. This actually includes a movie, by the way, which is just kind of weird. I don't know why they did that. Now, similar to Dead or Alive Dimensions, I think a lot of people would classify this as a port. I think it's pretty much entirely just content from Tekken 6. But if you like fighting games, it's actually a really impressive port. From the little bit I've played, I've always enjoyed Tekken. And while the servers might not be active with randoms like Super Street Fighter 4 3D, if you have a friend that has the game, you can go and queue up. It is pretty expensive though. I would say, why not for Tekken 3D Prime? Sushi Striker, The Way of Sushido. I bet you didn't think you'd be seeing that game on this list. Yeah, this game actually has a full online versus mode. Now, unfortunately, I couldn't get footage of it because you have to get to like World 3 or something to even unlock it, which was a couple hours into the game, I think. So I didn't even feel like doing that, which means I think most people probably won't feel like doing that. But if you do care about Sushi Striker, this game is on Switch anyway. I think this is an why not moment. More of a novelty once again. Sushi Striker on the 3DS definitely controls better than the Switch version, but since the Switch version still exists and will remain active hopefully for the foreseeable future, there's not much reason to go back to the 3DS version. And finally, here we are on our final definite must-play game for the Nintendo 3DS. I alluded to it earlier. The Legend of Zelda Triforce Heroes. Now, once again, like Federation Force, this game maybe wasn't reviewed so highly. However, it is a multiplayer Zelda game designed for online play. You can play this game locally, of course, like most of these games on this list, but most people don't have the luxury of having 2 other friends locally that want to play Triforce Heroes with them in 2023. I bought this game on release and I played it back then and I honestly really enjoyed it. It was kind of fun communicating with randoms too, using the emotes, just trying to say like, hey, this is how you solve this puzzle, but not actually being able to talk. It kind of just added a different layer of challenge. And this is also the most recent multiplayer Zelda game. We never got one on the Switch. It never got ported. There was no other Four Swords type of game on the Switch. So this is our most recent multiplayer Zelda game and you won't be able to play it online soon. So to me, right alongside Federation Force, this is an absolute must play if you're interested in Zelda or 3DS or just like the history of Nintendo. This is an important game that you won't be able to play online anymore. And then the final thing I want to talk about in this video is the Yokai Watch series. Now, I feel like Yokai Watch doesn't have as much of a focus on trading and battling, but these games do feature all of those mechanics, just like Pokemon. So if trading and battling with your friends is something you're interested in, I definitely think you should consider doing it now. And that is going to do it for this video. There's a nice stack of 3DS games behind me now. Let me know once again if I forgot anything in the comments down below. I'm not perfect. I'm going to forget some random third-party games or something like that, right? So let me know if I missed your favorite 3DS game in the comments down below. Maybe you're really excited about Steel Diver Sub Wars. I just remembered that one. That game had Morse code for some reason. Thank you all so much for watching. Of course, if you are interested in more Nintendo 3DS content, I will be posting a lot of videos covering online play in these games moving forward. I plan on doing, hopefully, weekly streams in the new year, so hopefully we can get on that schedule and start doing some community streams where I have you guys join me in online games or just reviews for these games, and it's going to be a lot of fun as we celebrate the final few months of the 3DS's life cycle. Of course, subscribe here for all of that content and more. Follow me on Twitter at BoTalksGames, and until next time, folks, peace!